We've implemented the collaborative relationships between the repository and entity objects, and defined the composition relationship between the customer and address by implementing a property in the customer class for the list of addresses. Now, when a customer is populated, the customer's list of addresses is also populated. This solution assumes that every time a customer is retrieved, that the addresses are needed as well. Let's implement the composition relationship between the order and the customer and the order and the address using a different technique. When populating the order object, the order doesn't care about the customer details, such as home and work addresses. The order has its own address property. So instead of a property that is a reference to the customer, which would then load all of the customer details, let's instead establish the relationship between the order and the customer by adding a property for the customer ID. Same for the shipping address. We'll define a simple integer property for the address ID in the order. There are several advantages to using ID properties instead of object properties to establish a relationship between classes. It reduces coupling because the class no longer has a reference to its related class. In our example, the order class does not need to directly reference the customer or address classes. And it can be more efficient because loading an object does not load the data for its dependencies. In our example, the order repository does not need to load all of the customer information and the shipping address each time it loads the order. Let's see what this looks like in the code. This is the order class we created earlier in this course. For the relationship between the order and the customer, we'll define an ID. I'll use a snippet. Prop tab tab, int tab, customer ID. And then for the relationship between the order and the address, prop tab tab, int tab, shipping address ID. That's it. When the order repository populates the order, these ID properties are populated, but not the customer or address details. To finish off the properties for this class, let's define the composition relationship between the order and the order items using references by defining a list of order items. Prop tab tab, list of order item, tab, order items. Since the generic list is in the system.collections.generic library, use the quick action to add the using statement, and we'll modify the constructor to initialize the list as we did with the address list. Initialize the order items in the constructor here. Then chain the constructor here. The order now has a customer as defined by this ID, has a shipping address as defined by this ID, and has a set of order items as defined by this list. We've now looked at collaboration and composition relationships. What about inheritance?